Yes, we are already in the 4th animated Mortal Kombat film, with the 4th different protagonist, and to this day I ask myself, why was Cole Young created?
Fuck him up, Johnny!
Sorry about that.
I don't mind.
Either do I.
So guys, how are you? I hope you're doing well. I'm the Monio, the interdimensional demon that talks the most about Mortal Kombat animations on YouTube, and you're on my channel. And we have another animated film from the line of films that Warner Animation Studios make, Mortal Kombat, and I particularly like these films a lot, especially Scorpion's Revenge, which was my favorite film of these until then, but I really liked it a lot from this Jonny Cage movie. The film begins with Johnny having another day in his superstar life, when he goes to meet a co-worker, and finds 2 women fighting over a map. One of them is Ashrah, who is a demon who has purged much of the evil from his soul and now remains in human form, and the other is one of his demon sisters who serve Shinnok, an evil god and one of the great villains of Mortal Kombat. Jonny Cage ends up with the map, and with the intention of finding his friend, he discovers that the map contains a spell to open a portal and bring Shinnok to our world, and he teams up with Ashrah to try to stop it, and we have our movie. In general, I like the animated films that Warner releases, which are generally DC films, which adapt some arc or story isolated from the comics. We recently had Justice League Warworld, for example, and we've had incredible films, but the big problem with these animations, recent films produced by Warner, is that they are becoming increasingly generic and with little budget. It is clear in recent animations that the direction is not making an effort to do more than the basics, and this can be seen in several recent films, like Warworld, which I already mentioned, but Mortal Kombat Legends Cage Match really surprised me in several ways. At first glance, what catches the most attention is the art direction, which could be generic with the same drawing style that they have already used in other films. But here we have a really cool style, with a great use of bright colors emulating neon, that appear on the sets and even around the characters, who are clothes typical of the late 80s and very stylized. All of this combines very well with the aesthetics close to 80s Hollywood. Another highlight that surprises positively are the songs. Seriously, I don't remember another animated film from DC or Mortal Kombat in which so much attention was paid to the songs. And in general, they are all very good, with typical 80s touches and even songs with vocals on the soundtrack. They excite and combine perfectly with the stylized aesthetic, giving the film a lot of identity. And this is something that was missing in Warner's current animations. I think the only really generic thing about the film is its script, which is quite predictable and cliché, in which a sect wants to sacrifice someone to free a very powerful evil being, who in the end is freed, but at the end of the film, it is defeated by the protagonists and arrested again. Everyone has seen this type of story hundreds of times, so if you're not a fan of Mortal Kombat, and don't know much about the characters, you'll probably find the script quite basic and generic. Although it works well in what it sets out to do, it's all very predictable and without many surprises. But if you're a fan of the game franchise, you'll get a lot of fan service and references to the games, to some characters that appear in the most recent game in the franchise, like Ashrah and Serena, and who stayed with very cool visuals in the animation, and which in this film has more prominence than in the game's own story mode. The fights in the film are really cool, but one thing that limits it a lot is the film's budget. Sometimes the animation lacks a little fluidity in some scenes, but the quality of the animation isn't bad. I'd say it's better than the average of DC animations and other animated films that Warner produces. Talking a little about the characters, Jonny Cage works very well as the protagonist. He is very funny, has a lot of charisma, and conveys very well the idea of a feudal guy, but who deep down has a good heart. You spend the entire film waiting for the moment in which he uses his most classic move, which is where he punches his opponent's testicles, and the moment in which he finally uses this move is really cool. Ashrah, despite not having much development, works well, and her serious and determined personality contrasts very well with Johnny's. Serena unfortunately doesn't have much prominence, and is limited to being Shinnok's servant. Shinnok is one of the low points of the film, despite him being imposing and powerful. Here he is a very generic villain, functioning much more as a great threat than as a memorable villain. But one of the most interesting things that this film brings to game fans is that it addresses several things about Jonny Cage, which were never shown in the games. For example, at the beginning of the film we discover why Johnny learned martial arts, and how he trained for this. The film also justifies how he gained his magical powers, like his green aura, which is something that has always been very poorly explained, and also justifies something that I never understood: why the hell does Raiden call Johnny Cage for Mortal Kombat, as he could have literally called any fighter, but he decides to call a guy who is an actor and who happens to know how to fight. But in that movie, we have a scene where Ashrah reports to Raiden about a warrior she faced and that he proved to be very skilled when facing it. Raiden is impressed and asks what the name of this warrior is, showing interest in his potential. Considering that this film takes place chronologically before Mortal Kombat 1, not the 2023, 1992 original, it would make much more sense for Johnny Cage to be summoned by Raiden to fight in Mortal Kombat, after Raiden finds out about all the events of that film involving Johnny Cage, which includes facing Shinnok alone. So we can say that this film not only connects but improves the story of the games, and I really didn't expect that from a 75-minute film, made for home video. And something interesting to mention is that Johnny Cage was a perfect character to be the protagonist of the live-action Mortal Kombat film, or at least one of the protagonists, since he is the character who knows nothing about the lore of Mortal Kombat and doesn't know what's going on. And through him the public who are not familiar with the mythology of Mortal Kombat can learn everything along with him. But in live action they preferred to create Cole Young, a character completely generic and without any charisma. Mortal Kombat Legends Cage Match is a very cool film, which will really please fans of Mortal Kombat games. It is not the best animation ever made, it is not a film that will change your life, but it is very fun and surprises in various aspects. But what about you? Have you watched it? Are you a fan of Mortal Kombat? What did you think of the film? Leave it in the comments, and if you liked it, subscribe to follow the next videos. Until next time my people, demonic hugs.